Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 258 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Summer Rain.
Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest returning to the episode after many, many moons. Welcome back, the wonderful PapaGenos to the podcast. How's it going, Papa?
Good, I'm doing good. Thank you guys for inviting me on and having me. So,
of course.
Happy to be here. Happy to be back. It's been a while, like you said. I think you said before we started recording, 100 episodes at least. So.
At least. I didn't do the math. I didn't do my research, but it feels like 100 episodes. You know, I'm a gut guy. But anyway, we got you back here, PapaGenos, because we're going to be going all over the recent glut of Super Switch, Switch Successor, Switch 2, whatever you want to call it. Rumors, announcement. We basically got a soft announcement of the Switch successor from Furukawa himself. And we wanted to talk a little bit about what launching the Switch successor in the current gaming landscape is going to be like for Nintendo. We know we kind of have like a rough timeline on when this thing is going to be coming out, and it's a turbulent time for the games industry. So we're going to be talking about that, kind of what that means, and where we think Nintendo's position within the gaming industry is going to be in the year 2025. On top of that, we got lots of news and rumors to talk about. Microsoft has taken a heel turn and has betrayed gamers across the globe. Square is having to make some terrible cuts. The NES World Championship game for the Nintendo Switch family of systems was officially announced with a trailer and much more. But before we get into that, how are we doing, everybody? We have a good week this past week?
I just want to interrupt and real quickly say I did do the math. And it looks like PapaGenos, the last time you were on was in March of 2021.
Wow.
So it was more than 150 episodes ago,
Let's go. Let's fucking go.
So glad to have you back. These 3 years later.
It doesn't feel like it was that long. I was going to guess like a year and a half, but 3 years is double my estimate. Okay.
Time is fake.
Yeah, truly. I'm at the point in my life where 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years ago all feel the exact same. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Right?
It's
Sorry.
weird.
Once you get to a certain age, though, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to send us off the rails. I'll just real briefly talk about my week.
I also looked it up, yeah. But I wasn't going to say anything.
Well, I had a really busy weekend. It was mostly good things. Yeah, I got to go see a concert, which is fun. I'm just a little out of it too. So, yeah. Because I went to a concert and I got home late, and then our power went out in the middle of the night, which woke everybody up, which I know seems weird, but like people sleep with sound machines and stuff like that. And then I just didn't really I'm really off because of all of it. So everything's fine.
Oh yeah.
Just,
you seem on the ball to me.
Thank
Patrick.
you. I'll do my professional best, but otherwise things are going pretty good. What about y'all?
Unlike me, actively moving my camera around while you're talking is not my professional best. My dog is down there fucking around with my cable. So it's never. I had a decent weekend. Friday night, I went to go see a band called Wild Party because they're active again. They released an album like 10 years ago and then disappeared. And now they're currently working on their second album after 10 years, which that's cool. That concert was fun. Hung out with my sister now that we live closer. Did some shopping. And then yesterday, was Mother's Day. And so hung out with my mom, hung out with my grandma, brought my accordion because that's just like a thing now when I go over there. I take my accordion over there to play and practice, and I can't play the shop theme from The Legend of Zelda without them being like, that's really close to the chicken dance, so then I end up having to play the chicken dance for like 10 minutes until yes, very good, yeah, that one.
Very good, David.
But like I gotta play it for like 10 minutes for them to be satisfied.
That's hilarious. Like
if it's a song that they know, just like never ending loop of it. Otherwise, crunching for Anime Central. I am almost done with creating costumes, so we'll have updates on that next time. Yeah, that's
very cool.
Yeah.
How are you doing, PapaGenos? How's your week?
Oh, doing good. Did everybody go to a concert? Because I went to a concert. I don't even remember.
Did? Oh man.
Yeah, I don't remember what day it was. It was Death Cab Postal Service
nice.
concert they're
Wow.
touring right now.
Mhm.
That's
They
cool.
haven't. I don't think Postal Service has toured in like 10 years or something like that. So that was cool. And then Mother's Day, hung out with my grandma, hung out with my mom. Same thing, pretty much relaxing weekend. Oh, and the Northern Lights were visible where I am. I don't know where you guys are, but I didn't see them. I went out both nights. I didn't see them, but some of my friends around my town like had great pictures of it, and they were saying it looked better on the phone than in person. But I didn't notice it. I went out and I was like, it looks kind of the same. One night was cloudy, so that maybe was blocking it, but another night was clear.
Yeah.
Didn't see them.
That makes sense. There's some ultraviolet light or non-visible light that I'm sure the camera's picking up on, but
Yeah, probably.
man, I had an opportunity to go to a concert this week and I passed. I should have, because I know Jordan also went to a concert this past weekend. Damn, that would have been cool if we were all music heads. But what did I do? I did go see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is directed by Wes Ball, who's doing the Zelda movie coming up. I did not go just to judge whether or not he would be good at directing a Zelda movie, although I did judge that. And I can say, now that I've seen the movie, I am confident in a Zelda movie from Wes Ball. I think it was a great film, but I'm going ape crazy recently, man. I rewatched the trilogy. I'm all about Monkey these days. Yeah, we got a monkey on Patrick's shirt for the audio listeners. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And then, but other than just having monkey on the mind, I am moving soon. At the end of this month, I got to be out of my apartment because they're renovating the damn thing. And I found a spot. And so I'll be moving in there. Hopefully at the end of the month, if it all goes well and nothing burns down on either end, I suppose. But yeah, so dealing with a lot of that. But I'm excited to have a new spot. And it's got an office space, so I will have a podcasting studio-ish thing in the apartment. So I'm excited about that.
Wonderful.
Well, last week we did an episode on Endless Ocean Luminous. A couple of quick shout outs to some folks. A Musel2 said, great episode. Seems like you all are warmer on the game than most, but still see issues. And they went on to say they got turned off by some of the reviews, but our discussion got them interested in the old games.
The ones you can emulate for free and not buy for $50.
And then AV said that Shane Kelly, who was our guest last week, was a nice surprise because they've listened to a lot of Another Zelda podcast and he helps run a great show and community over there. And that it was nice to hear some considerate coverage of Endless Ocean, where most people just seem to be enraged that it's not a white knuckle Souls-like. Yeah, and then over on YouTube, we got a comment from Leon Kennedy 1508 who said, love the podcast, my new favorite gaming cast. Really glad to have you on board, Leon Kennedy, if that is your real name.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I somehow doubt it. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
That would be crazy.
Well, if you too want to be shouted out on the podcast next week, then leave a comment somewhere about this week's episode, either on the YouTube channel or on our Discord or somewhere else on social media. Send us a note and we'll try to shout you out. We always appreciate hearing from our listeners and viewers. We've got a Patreon now, so you can head over to Patreon and support the show. We really appreciate all of our patrons doing that. And like David said a minute ago, it really helps us out. If you're listening to this on a podcast app or something, it'd be helpful for us if you subscribed and hit like over on YouTube. And also, if you watch the YouTube version, you get to see my shirt. So, like
David said, monkey on it.
With that, we will talk about the video game news and rumors for the week. It's a big week. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of I think we talked about this in our Discord, like a whiplash, because there was exciting news and then terrible news and then exciting news. Anyway, we're going to start off with some bad news. And maybe, this is like you said, David, Xbox, Microsoft has really done a number on their fans here and made a lot of people angry at them. They've announced that they are closing a handful of studios. So I've been hearing them referred to as the Embracer of the United States and things like that. Apparently, they're going to close Tango Gameworks, Arcane Austin, and Alpha Dog Games. That was announced this past week. So if you're not familiar, Tango Gameworks made Hi-Fi Rush, which was a well-received game. Arcane Austin, the other half of Arcane, that they have another branch in France. But they were responsible for the Redfall game most recently, and as well as, a number of other projects. And I think Alpha Dog Games mostly makes mobile games. Is that right? Or used to now. But this is like a big loss. And I think a lot of people, it's just kind of a head scratcher because these are some of their bigger, better studios, arguably. Right? I mean, I don't know. They now have so many bigger, better studios. That's part of the problem, right?
This broke basically right after y'all recorded last week's episode, right? So we've had a little bit of time to sit on this. So like, the temperature in the room isn't quite as red hot as it was whenever it broke. But I mean, I know I got pretty like mad when I heard this news, you know, and it's not like, you know, not that I have like a parasocial relationship with Xbox or something, but it was you kind of, I'll say this. I think Phil Spencer, like the kind of mask is starting to come off a little bit of Phil Spencer, at least in the eyes of gamers. You know, I think for so long, Phil Spencer's been like, hey guys, I'm one of you, you know, and I think that to a degree, I think that, you know, that is true. I mean, obviously he's a real gamer. I mean, fucking, what was it? After this, a bunch of people nuked his camp in Fallout 76. So that's funny, but it also proves, I mean, he is a gamer. Like he puts his money where his mouth is. He's not like one of these Jim Ryan types, right? But it is like under his tutelage, like Xbox has kind of been taking L after L after L. And then, you know, now, especially after they've put so much stock into buying up all these studios, claiming that, you know, it's like, what was his quote? It's like,
gonna let them do what they want to. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. That, right? He's like, you know, Tango Gameworks, we expect them to make Evil Within 3, but they want to do Hi-Fi Rush, and we're cool with that, right? And then it's not like, you know, 5 million seller, and they close the studio, right? So I'm sure some of this is Microsoft decision. You know, I think a lot of people have come out and said that's really Microsoft gaming now instead of Xbox gaming, and the shareholders are beholden to the company writ large, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a $3 trillion company, you know, and if you can't take losses in some of your creative sectors like that, then where is the buck gonna stop on people like, you know, creating art for art's sake? But anyway, that's some of my initial thoughts. Yeah.
And I think that's the messaging, is that there are no art projects coming out of Microsoft, and that's not what we can expect from them. Yeah, I was mad a week ago. I think I'm like exhausted by it now, thinking about it. And I don't know that I have anything else to add to it besides, yeah, they acquired all of these studios. What happened? There's no such thing as just publishing games anymore, at least when it comes to Microsoft.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible news. I also was like, you know, what the heck is Microsoft doing here? I think it was like right after they announced the shutdowns. I don't remember who it was. There's two like real PR disasters right afterwards in the wake of all this being a PR disaster. One of which I don't remember the exact quote, but someone from Microsoft said something about like, we want small games to like that do well award-wise. It was like, dude, that's Hi-Fi Rush. That's the studio you just shut down, Tango. Like, what are you doing? And then I saw I don't know what it was. It was a woman on stage from Microsoft, and she was asked a question, basically just straight up like, you know, how can we kind of trust if you guys are going to shut down award-winning, good, you know, well-selling game studios, like a studio that puts out a game that does well, gets shut down. How can we trust that? And the answer was just a bunch of, oh, what I love about gaming is that it's creative. It was just a bunch of nothing. Like it was horrible. Yeah. So it's just like, I don't know. I don't understand how. I mean, I understand how this thing happens. It's because of, like you said, shareholders. Basically, it's wanting to hit those high profit margins, which we just got out of pandemic world where big business did very, very well, and you know now they got to keep the shareholders hitting those high numbers, regardless. And sometimes that means throwing away even long-term success. Like Hi-Fi Rush is well known now. The sequel could do better than the original, and it could go on to become a big thing. But it's like, you know, the shareholders sometimes don't even understand the industry or the product or whatever, and especially not the artistry to it. Game won a ton of awards, had, you know, great critical reception and everything to it. So yeah, it's just really, really sad to see that happen. But that's the world we're in now, unfortunately. So yeah, it's devastating. It's sad, and I don't know how us as consumers and as gamers, how can we feel like, oh, I want to buy a game from Microsoft in that sort of I'm voting with my wallet kind of way, in that sort of like, oh, I really like this game, I want to support it. If I think like it doesn't even matter either way. You know, I buy this game, it does well, it does bad. It's a total gamble. And then if you're someone working for Microsoft or a studio working for them, it's like, do I really want to put my best game out there? If I make this great game, you know, it may be personal to me, it might just get shut down, no matter how good I do or how well it's received or how, you know, it's like, it can't work that way. It has to work where if the fans love it, if it's a great game, if it's critically acclaimed, that needs to thrive. You can't not have that thrive, even if it isn't financially the best for the company or something like that. If those metrics don't equal longevity for a company, what does? And how do you then create success in a world where you can't rely on success, meaning you get to continue succeeding? Like it's just absurd. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. It's unfortunate.
Totally. We haven't uttered the words Game Pass yet, and I think we should, because I think that's a big part of this. I mean, I think there are a couple of things, right? Like it's already been pointed out, maybe with the Activision merger, Microsoft as a whole is looking closer at Xbox. Like, we spent all this money, where are the returns? And that took a long time and a lot of money, and we need returns, and it hasn't happened yet. And because partly, right, like Game Pass. And I think some of these acquisitions, you know, this is all speculation, right? We're thinking that this would increase Game Pass, right? Like that, but the subscription has stayed steady or not grown to support this. And then what is your metric, right? Like for success, then, if you're not selling games and you're not gaining subscriptions, I think there's a problem there, and I don't know what they're going to do. And, well, you know,
they just dropped $70 billion. So like Microsoft is looking to get that back right away. You know what I mean? They're like, so where's the return? You know what I mean? Like it's like, bro, it just fucking happened. And it was like, and it took, you know, years of litigation. I think it took longer than anybody was expecting for that deal to go through, right? So that was all time that probably Matt Booty and Phil Spencer were planning on, like, yo, okay, this is when we're going to start recouping some of that initial interest. And by the time, you know, we start to get that back, these other games will be out, blah, 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 blah. There's all these different reasons as to why, right? But I think you're totally right. It was Brad Hildebrand on LinkedIn, was a former Xbox guy, basically made a long post talking about, yeah, it's Game Pass and it's Activision, right? And I think that, you know, I mean, it's like kind of everybody could see this coming, you know. I think that Game Pass grew at the same rate that all the streamers grew during COVID, right? And then life opens back up again and the growth stops, right? And so, you know,
it can't have infinite growth, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, if the cost of Game Pass, I don't know. Yeah, that's like a whole another analysis, but
I feel like buying up all those studios too is like, there was a crazy legal battle, and the whole time they're saying, like, you know, no, this is fine. If we get them, it's going to be great. They're going to thrive under us or whatever. And then to just acquire them and shut them down goes against their whole legal argument for why it's okay if they have this monopoly and buy all these things or whatever. And yeah, it's just horrible to, I mean, I know the circumstances are a little, I'm sure that wasn't the idea, wasn't buy up these studios and then close them. But I think you're probably right. The returns aren't happening as quickly as possible. Game Pass, you know, stagnates, and that hurts them. And it's kind of been a Microsoft thing ever since Microsoft jumped into gaming. I'm pretty sure, like, you know, when the original Xbox came out, it was sort of like they saw Sony and the PS2 becoming the DVD in everyone's living room and going, we need to have a video game system too. You know, we can't not have a gaming system if gaming systems are the future. So they jumped in, took the loss. And then I think Halo and 360, you know, took off, and they were like, okay, we're starting to get returns or whatever. I don't know the exact, I'd have to see a timeline of stuff. But I think Microsoft, besides kind of the 360 era, I think they've been taking losses for a long time on everything. And this was, I think, another like long-term plan was, okay, we need to get into gaming. That was 20 years ago. Let's get into gaming. And then now it's like, okay, let's acquire as many studios as possible. And unfortunately, you know, whatever Xbox wants to do and Phil Spencer wants to do, I do think the higher ups at Microsoft are maybe like, all right, we're sick of this, or the shareholders are sick of this, you know, whatever. Like, we need the returns now. No more planning for the future. And so now we have a bunch of companies shut down, and it's awful for the people who work there, awful for gamers who are fans of these games. It's bad across the board.
I feel like we could talk about this more.
I could honestly talk about this for an hour, so we should probably move on.
But we could, you know, I'm sure we will continue to be talking about this, and this is probably not the end. unfortunately, too, of Microsoft's handling of all this. But we'll move on to another unfortunate news, which is that Square Enix has announced that they're going to be making some layoffs. I think this was an internal meeting that's leaked out or been discussed publicly now. Apparently, as we know and have discussed a lot with all these layoffs, Japan has laws, so they're going to be firing people in Europe and North America and laying off people there. We've been hearing about how Square is not done very well, but that sucks. Sort of in tandem with this, and then I'll open it up for discussion. There's a recent announcement, or again, I think this is an internal thing that's kind of come out, but that they have decided over at Square that they are going to really push multi-platform games and make fewer games as well, was I think part of this too. Like
hey, same with Xbox. They're doing
it's sort of like an internal plan that they have to make all their games multi-platform, and which kind of lends credence to the discussion we had about Final Fantasy VII being PlayStation exclusive, being something that's kind of hurt Square. So what do y'all think about this? Obviously it sucks, the layoffs and all that, but are we surprised after hearing the numbers, or what do we think about this multi-platform stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to this that you haven't already said, but I think kind of Summer, I think you put it best last week when you said that, it's not that they're making less money, it's that the games are getting more expensive to produce. Like they're making the same that they've made forever. It's just like the games take 5, 6, 7 years to come out. And so, the goalpost moves because of that. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think going multi-platform is probably a good plan. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, they kind of are, but it's like some titles aren't. It just seems like the bag that you get from whatever platform exclusive is not big enough to keep it on one platform. But yeah. I mean, if Xbox goes under, what other platform are you going to put this on, dog?
I know. Yeah. I guess there's always PC, and there aren't as many PlayStation exclusives these days. Like there'll be a timed exclusive, right, for a while, and then they almost always go to everywhere else. Yeah, you said what I was going to say. This is basically a continuation of last week's news, and more layoffs. Of course, that fucking sucks. The news about everything going multi-platform tells me that they've determined that is going to make more money than trying to still sell more PlayStation 5s. I think, they're accessible now. People who want it and can buy it have bought it, which means they know that they just need to sell more games point blank. Yeah, wow.
Unless there's anything else, we'll move on to Nintendo, who is not doing badly. Oh, well, let's be clear. Microsoft is doing great. It might just be parts of Xbox. Like Microsoft's turning huge profits. But we're moving on to Nintendo's. They had their financial report, their quarterly financial investor meeting, and they are doing amazing. This is not from the official numbers, but I think it's one of the more fascinating bits that's come out of this, is somebody did some number crunching based on their financials, and apparently in the Switch years, they've made more money than the previous 35 years combined. So that's pretty massive. They have like a chart where, it's just... Well,
and that was when they had like a monopoly on gaming.
Yeah, the 80s and early 90s, it was like Nintendo meant video game. Your mom said like, they're playing that Nintendo, and you could be playing Sega Genesis or Atari. It didn't matter. You're playing the Nintendo. Like they were, everything. And
so whenever we get this, we get updated numbers on software and hardware. The Switch itself has sold over 140 million units. And, we've always been wondering if it'll hit that Nintendo DS number, which is 154. So still a little ways to go there. But I think their projections for the end of the year would get it there, or the end of the fiscal year.
They said 20 million is what they're aiming for. Is that what it is?
I thought it was 13 or something, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But so it would like be right there. Right. But at any rate, I don't think there's any huge movement. They always put out the top 10 bestsellers. I don't think there was any huge movement there in terms of the titles that are in the top 10 best-selling.
I just know that the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is now officially their best-selling game of all time. I think it's past the Wii. So
wow, that's a big
ones.
one too.
Yeah.
A couple of other like interesting notes before maybe we dig into some of the more granular details too. Apparently somebody's noticed that digital sales now for the first time ever for Nintendo were more than 50%. So Nintendo has been, more so than other consoles and obviously PC, greater physical sales, but that has finally tipped as of this last quarterly report. And then I think it was a fan or somebody that's kind of dug through their data and shown all the million plus sellers so we can see beyond the top 10, which is what's more interesting in some ways to see where everything lands. And it's pretty fascinating. I think you can go out and find this. You can find all of this stuff, obviously, but it's really interesting to see the games that are kind of like right below the top 10 and some of the more recent ones like Mario Bros. Wonder and where that has landed, and some of the like Princess Peach Showtime and all these newer games too that have cracked over 1 million sales. Mario versus Donkey Kong. It's an interesting list. I don't know if y'all have any other notes.
13 million sales for Mario Brothers Wonder is pretty amazing. Like that's a good selling game. It's funny looking at this list, and it's like the top 21 games that Nintendo has made, first party games, have over 10 million sales. That's nobody else does that, right? And then they've got 67 Nintendo published games that have sold over 1 million units, right? So everyone likes to act like the Switch is not part of the console wars, but I mean, they are, and they're winning. It's like they're definitely kind of smoking everybody else that's out there. I don't know. It's just kind of wild to see. And I think this is also, look at something like, not necessarily Redfall, but like Hi-Fi Rush, which we know has sold multiple millions of copies, even being on Game Pass. And then look at between number 37 and 67 on this list. Those are all games that have sold 3 million and less copies. I mean, this is where you take a hint from this, right? I mean, obviously they have a lot to fall back on, but it's like putting faith in your developers, even when they don't sell as much as you necessarily want. You have to think some of the development costs for these games were probably a little bit lower. They're working on multiple projects. They shelve a lot of stuff and wait to release things. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. I think these are lessons that the greater gaming industry can take from some of these numbers.
Before we move on from the million seller thing, I just want to say that I think it's really interesting that Pikmin 4 is at number 33. Purely anecdotal, right? But I was at a thing at my kid's school, and like there was a kid that had a presentation about video games, and I was like, "What's your favorite video game?" He goes, "Pikmin 4." And like, I don't know, it's just weird to see it that high.
I think the Switch has done wonders for, just how many units sold of the Switch are in households right now. There's so many, I don't want to say lesser known or lesser Nintendo, I don't want to use a negative term here, but series that haven't historically, been, blockbuster sellers, like Pikmin. Mario RPG did pretty good. It was 3 million. I was happy to see a Mario RPG game do that. Princess Peach Showtime, obviously that's not an older title or something like that, like a continuing one, but it could continue after this now. I think all these games have now sold good amounts. They've now been seen by a good amount of the public and can continue and thrive, maybe more than anticipated, simply because the Switch has done so well and so many people are, adopting these games and checking them out. And yes, that's great for, again, long-term stuff for Nintendo going forward. And where, like Pikmin, a series that we went a long time between Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4. I think there was just that DS game, Hey Pikmin, in between then. And the re-releases of stuff, but I was waiting for Pikmin 4 for a long time myself, because I love Pikmin 1 and 2 on GameCube and 3 on Wii U and everything. But now to see Pikmin 4 outsell everything and be great and everything, it's like, okay, now I have no worry that there will be a Pikmin 5. Whereas before I was kind of like, Pikmin 3 did okay, but it was on Wii U, nobody really liked the Wii U, blah blah blah. So happy to see these again lesser known Nintendo titles selling numbers that on previous Nintendo consoles would have been top sellers or high sellers, so good to see.
Well, there's obviously some other big news around the Nintendo financials in terms of the Switch successor and some other stuff, but we're going to be kind of breaking that up and talking about that later in the show. Something else that got announced outside of this before this is the NES World Championships game, the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Sorry, this is going to be another one of those games that's going to throw me off in how you say it.
Booster Course Pass Deluxe 8.
Yeah.
NES Edition.
To the extent that we talk about it that much, which I kind of hope we do. But anyway, this officially got announced, right? We had the ESRB leak and some other leakers saying that this was coming, Pioro, and it officially got announced. So there is going to be on July 18th the release of the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. And this is interesting in a couple of ways. Number one, like, it's a digital release for $30 or a physical release for $60, which I think is interesting, right? Like we talked about that digital physical thing with the financial news there. It feels like a little push towards digital here, or for like, you know.
I pre-ordered the physical edition of this game, and I never buy physical games, right? Like this is giving a lot of that Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and Blade of Light. I had to look at it because I've got the physical edition right up there, and I don't even really fuck with Fire Emblem games. But you know why I got it?
Because it had a
no, not to piss you off, because it has a reproduction NES cart that is super sexy. The Fire Emblem one had like a clear, like kind of acrylic NES cartridge. This one has a gold NES cartridge. I basically got that so I can have those side by side on my shelf. You know,
this is literally a cash grab for people like you.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually excited for this game. A lot of the response of this game for the trailer and everything has been pretty tepid. You know, I think
we can get into it.
yeah. I mean, the trailer is kind of cool because they have a bunch of old champions from the NES World Championship. So that was cool that they brought all them back. But I mean, a lot of people are saying this feels like a watered down NES remix, and they're probably not wrong. But I don't know. To me, it's giving a lot of like Super Mario Brothers 35, a lot of these like F-Zero 99, taking the old games and kind of turning them into something a little bit new. I like the idea of multiplayer. I like the idea of leaderboards. I'm pretty excited for this game. So I don't know about you guys. Are you guys pumped about this?
Well, I think you and I have some overlap in that. I think this is also sort of a speedrunny audience they're going for, and also sort of a streaming / party game. Because I mean, it shows the inputs in it, which I think, you know, I think they're just hoping that this takes off as maybe both a streaming and party game type element. And both of those sound fun to me. I'm definitely going to get it. It's one of those titles I'm a little worried that we play a bunch and then never touch again. But
yeah. David, you touched on some things that are the reasons why I'm a little frustrated about it. I like the idea of what it is. I am frustrated that they are selling it as a game. I think that these are modes that they should add to NSO.
Oh, sure.
You literally said Tetris 99, F-Zero 99. You said those things that are a part of NSO. And that's what this feels like to me. As soon as I was watching, you know, I watched this trailer, loved the trailer, thought the trailer was a great showcasing of the history of the Nintendo World Championships. But like on the other side of that, it actually kind of got me a little mad about how that's what I say. It does feel like, to me personally, it feels like a cash grab for those specific nostalgic moments. I wish the Nintendo World Championships had just continued to be a thing. It could have been like a 4-year, like, you have esports, and then Nintendo could have been like the Olympics of esports, and they could have continued to have like whatever. It could have been their way of saying like, these are the staple games that we expect everybody to know really well, right? They could do that every 4 years for whatever the current like game system was. Could you imagine, right? That like there's like a Splatoon event, who can do the best like whatever movement, whatever maneuver, you know. So things like, so it just got me like dreaming about what we could have had, but instead we're getting this. We're getting, and I feel like the only reason we have to pay for this digital version of it is because they want to sell a physical like combo pack for it.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad theory. I don't know. I bought in, dude. I'm fucking all
no, and this is not me. And this is not me judging you for buying it either. Like that, it's just I'm not sure if it's for me. This is not me saying I'm not going to buy it. I don't think I'm going to buy the physical. We'll see how popular it is, right? Like that's kind of where it'll be for me.
If you want to Venmo me $30, I'll mail you the physical cartridge because I don't want the cartridge. I just want all the little doodads that come with the collector's edition.
My man doesn't even want to play it.
No, I want to play it. I just want to buy it digitally. It seems like something I want, but I'm not about to drop $90 on this like tiny ass game, you know?
Yeah,
but,
that's what I'm saying. It should be part of NSO. At least that's how I feel.
Totally.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like it should probably be an NSO thing. I mean, doesn't NSO already have like, if you go into the NES NSO, they have the special ones, the games Red Ribbon.
Yep.
Very similar to this.
Yep.
It reminded me of was it NES Remix? Was that 3DS or DS, whatever it was? Reminds me of that. But it does feel like Nintendo just like they won't let go of reselling us these old games. And I thought NSO was finally like, especially because they're talking about this is going to move to Switch 2. This is going to continue. Like this is an account. We're just going to keep adding games to it. Like finally, okay, I'm not going to have to rebuy Super Mario Brothers again. It's just, you know, this is it. So yeah, I do feel like if the digital just came to NSO, but there was like, hey, there's this physical package. It's all this cool, you know, collector's stuff. Because I do like that stuff too. I think the idea of I feel you. The idea of a official Nintendo cartridge again, an NES cartridge, it hits me. It hits it like the NES Classic hit me just because it had original NES controllers. I remember I was working at a retro game store when it came out. We had old controllers, we had the new ones, and we were like, this is what a new NES button feels like. Nobody's felt this in like 20 years. Like, this is great. So yeah, I know it does feel a little like they maybe are selling the digital just because they have to sell the physical. I agree with Summer on that. That feels like maybe what's going on here. But yeah, at this point, 2024, I feel like NES games should probably just be part of a subscription service. Like, I don't feel like I need to keep rebuying them. Even though I do like the idea of Nintendo dipping their toes into esports more and more, which this could be, like you said, like speedrunners and stuff.
They're speedrunning. Yeah. It's like them like just even saying speedrun mode, like in an official Nintendo game is pretty cool, you know?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I like that. I mean, this is just feels very much my shit. I mean, anyway, we can move on, but I'll just say it's interesting that they announced this coming out in July now that we know that there's going to be a direct in June as well, right? But we'll get to that in a second.
If they do, if this game turns into we're bringing back the Nintendo World Championships and we're going to do that from now on and we're really getting into esports and blah, 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 then by all means, I'm happy that this did well and everything. Right. But personally, I don't like the idea of rebuying NES games anymore at this point.
So. That's a good point because sorry, I guess I'm jumping ahead here now. I know we're going to move on, but yeah, maybe they announce the next event at the direct. I would like for them to do that, right? Like that would make them selling a copy of it make more sense to me. Like you have to have this copy to participate or whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about decompilation, recompilation of N64 games next. So apparently a Mr. Wise Guy, as he is known, is like a modder or a creator of or recompiler of these old titles, right? Has come up with a new way to decompile these old games and make them come out with modern day support for various things. I don't know all the technical stuff. I actually haven't dug deep into this. This is a good one for maybe David to better explain.
I got you, Patrick. So basically, this is some of you might have been familiar with the recent decompilation projects for Ocarina of Time, which was the Ship of Harkinian, and the Super Mario 64 PC port. These are basically, they take all the code from the game, rebuild it in C, and then put out a native version so you can play these games in 4K. You can use a bunch of, you can play them in high frame rates. You can add a bunch of fun new ways, cheats and all this different stuff. And it's just like a way better way to play N64 games rather than just emulating them, right? And so basically, there's this guy, Mr. Wise Guy, who came up with a tool that essentially automates that entire process, right? So I think that there is still a lot of decompilation projects that are going forward, like the Majora's Mask project. This isn't a replacement for the upcoming Ship of Harkinian Majora's Mask version, because that will be a bespoke, actually handcrafted decompilation PC port of that game. That said, there's now a tool that essentially will allow, for a fraction of the time that it takes these teams to make these projects, to basically pull the assets, put it all together and then have a native PC version of these N64 games. And it essentially will work with any N64 game. I think one of the games that he did this with that he tested it on was Rocket Robot on Wheels, which is low-key one of my favorite N64 games. It's a Sucker Punch game. That game is awesome. I actually downloaded all the like GitHub stuff for the Rocket Robot on Wheels stuff, but then I'm not smart enough to, it was like all you have to do is run the beep beep bop beep boop, like all these things over all these different things. I had no idea what the fuck they're talking about. I'm like, all right, I'll let somebody actually like that's smarter than me do this, and then I'll download that zip file, you know. But either way, it's exciting because you know N64 is a system that I think is kind of weirdly more so than NES and Super Nintendo. Sort of feels like a relic of the past in that the games like, you know, don't play super great on original hardware because we were just figuring out 3D and they haven't aged as gracefully, right? So having native PC ports where you can really soup them up, you can add ray tracing, you can do all this stuff that really makes them feel much more modern while retaining that original charm, and you can do it without having to spend months and months and, you know, have lots of people spending their time actually creating these things. It's a pretty cool step forward, and I can't wait to see what happens. And Nintendo shutting the whole thing down, countdown in 5, 4. But anyway, it's an exciting time if you are a PC gamer, and especially if you have a Steam Deck.
Moving along to some Zelda news here. It has been officially a year since The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released. We're recording this on May 13th. It came out on May 12th, 2023. Partly in honor of that, presumably, Nintendo has announced some new products that are coming out, in particular the Masterworks book and a Master Sword replica. And the Masterworks book has a lot of like concept art and stuff in it, right, for this game. And the little bits that I've seen are pretty darn cool. I think it's just in Japan as of right now, but my understanding is from previous stuff, this will likely get translated and all that, but it just means that we have longer to wait until that comes out. But that's pretty cool. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on either that or just the game being a year old.
The Masterworks book, they said somewhere that it's going to have a timeline in it, which I know one of the things with Tears of the Kingdom was like, oh, this ruins the whole timeline. And I am so excited. I don't know if they could possibly fix it. I don't know what they would fix like that. Oh, it makes sense now. And instead of just being like, oh, it's a gazillion years in the future from all the other games, so don't even worry about it, which might be the timeline we get. Sure. But I was excited to hear like, oh, cool, the lore might actually make sense again. But I'm very happy Tears of the Kingdom is a year old. I played a ton of it when it first came out. Didn't beat it. Took a long time off. And then earlier this year, a month or two ago, I jumped back in for like 2 weeks and just banged out the end of the game. Got all the costumes, everything except for I think every single quest and every single Korok seed. But I have like the full map, full depth, everything. Like I did that game again. So it's pretty fresh in my mind. And yeah, it's cool. It's a year old and everything. They're kind of celebrating that. It's cool to see.
Yeah, it's a great fucking game, man. And there's a lot of people that are like Tears of the Kingdom revisionists. Like, I think it's like kind of hip to be like, Breath of the Wild was good and Tears of the Kingdom sucks. It's like, dude, I don't know what you're smoking, man. I think Tears of the Kingdom is one of the finest video games I've ever played. You know, I think I totally understand that it's not as fresh as Breath of the Wild, but it's like for me, I couldn't put it down. For me, it was such a reinvigoration, and I like it a lot more than Breath of the Wild. I thought it was a fantastic game.
I agree with that. I liked it better than Breath of the Wild. I do totally understand that Breath of the Wild is going to always be the one that left that impact on me.
Sure.
But I think objectively, Tears of the Kingdom is the better game. And I don't know how many hours into Breath of the Wild, 300-400 hours. And Tears of the Kingdom, it was 200-300 hours. And I'll tell you this, I couldn't probably put another 200 hours into Breath of the Wild. So Tears of the Kingdom was at least fresh enough for me to put another 200 hours into it, whether or not that, felt like, some more Breath of the Wild, it was still, real good and had a lot to do. So, yeah, I liked it.
It took a lot of Breath of the Wild and made it even better. That's like a true sequel.
Well, while we're talking about The Legend of Zelda, a certain somebody has been stirring the rumor mill with a tweet discussing how overdue we are for a game where Zelda is the main character. That feels like maybe a hint of something they've heard. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I will say,
do you think we weren't gonna bring this up?
No, I know.
And for the record, we booked you on the show before this tweet went viral.
True. That's true. That is true.
Well, I'll say this. We've on the record multiple times on the show we have discussed, as I think many fans of the series have, how much we really want a game where Zelda is playable, especially the main character. I don't want just like a Hyrule Warriors or something, right? Like I want a game where you play as Zelda. It just after I feel this way about pretty much every character that's been put into Smash. Like once like I want a Captain Falcon game. That's why I know David hates this, but it's like I want a game where you play as and see these movesets and in its own sort of world and all that. But I don't know if there's anything else other than you also used the wonderful concept art that I also like when David shared this tweet with us. I was like, oh my gosh, what's that from? Because like I hadn't seen the Masterworks thing yet. It's really cool concept art of Zelda with different haircuts, which now we got to have that in the Zelda game, right? Like,
yeah, one of them is definitely Karen hair, but we'll ignore that for now. But yeah, I mean, what have you heard, PapaGenos? I gotta put you up to the fucking fire here because we've heard the rumors of the Switch successor getting an enhanced Tears of the Kingdom port, that was shown behind closed doors. Like, have you been hearing that it's this sort of thing, or is this something different, or what are you hinting at here, Papa? We got
it. Right, so Zelda's hairdressing studio will. I can't speak too much on this one, which is why I was just vague with my tweet. I don't know if I capitalized some letters in there or not. I don't remember. Yeah. So I'll say a few things. The image of Zelda with all different haircuts, that just was happened to come out with the Masterworks, and I was like, oh, this is a good springboard to say what I want to say. So it's not necessarily anything to do with like the image that I put there or anything like that. I'll throw it there. And I wouldn't have tweeted something for no reason. I'll put that out there. Okay. But I can't really say too much more on that one. Maybe when we're done recording, I could say something to you guys. Yeah, I am going to do a video on my predictions for future Zelda games, probably June Direct. And I don't know what's in the June Direct or whatever. I'm not acting like I do, but potentially what we could see there. I'll put out a video on that soon. Pay attention to it, I guess, if you're following that tweet that I put out. Is there anything else I want to say on it?
It's okay. I'm holstering the gun that I've got pointed at you under the table. So you're safe now. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just say I wouldn't have tweeted for no reason. Let's say I'm confident. So we'll let it play out. So yeah, when we're done recording, maybe I can talk to you guys a little more openly. But publicly, I'm I just. It'd be cool if we got a game where we played as Zelda. That'd be cool. I think
that would be great.
I want more that you brought up the Breath of the Wild on Switch 2 or Switch successor, Super Switch. Let's all hope. I'd heard the behind the closed door thing and stuff like that. That it had like an upscale Breath of the Wild. I have no idea about that. That has nothing to do with. Okay. So I don't. That's separate. Whatever that. If that's a thing, separate. So
good to know.
Okay. Well, just talking about this, it seems like we saw in those financials that Princess Peach Showtime sold well. I think, there's got to be people over there at Nintendo talking about, there's got to have been people in Nintendo saying there should be a Zelda game, whether or not they were being ignored or whatever. But at this point, you'd like to think that people would be like, fans are asking for it. The Peach game sold well. It's time, right? So.
That was a big thing people wanted for Tears of the Kingdom. We were teased out. The first trailer was Link and Zelda adventuring together, and it was like, okay, is that what we're getting with this game? And that's what I thought for a long time. I was like, that's probably what this game's going to be.
Same.
And then we did get playable Zelda in Hyrule Warriors, in Age of Calamity, but that was it. And then Tears of the Kingdom was like, no. And I was like, bummer. So it does feel like Nintendo seems to be listening to the fans more in the last few years. I feel like as a Geno fan to suddenly get Mario RPG back, I have to say it feels like they're listening to fans more. And I definitely feel like in the last couple of years, there's probably been an uptick in, can we play a Zelda? We want to play a Zelda, so.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's just, speculative stuff, but, in that way.
We've talked about that a lot on this show, but it's like Furukawa's Nintendo is a different beast from previous leadership, right? And I think that he's a lot more plugged in to the fans, a lot more plugged into the Nintendo communities. And I think that can only really be a good thing at this point, especially now that they're like at the top of their game.
Well, let's move on and close out the news here. We got a couple more things. Real briefly, the Nintendo Switch is no longer going to integrate with X, formerly Twitter, whatever we prefer to call it.
Just call it Twitter, Patrick. You know,
but that nobody does anymore. It's increasingly it's increasingly X, and I hate that. But
literally, you're the only person I know that calls it X.
I feel like everybody does now. But
I've switched to, I say Twitter and then I go or X, and I do that every single time now. It's just this longer title now. It's just this. That's what it's become to me.
Well, regardless of whether we call it Twitter or X, you won't be able to use your Switch and upload photos directly anymore and send out X's or tweets.
Oh my God. You're driving me fucking crazy. Anyway, yeah, I mean, this is a bummer for me because I use that feature all the time. I think the Nintendo built-in integration for getting your photos off of your Switch is a cumbersome mess of making a network with your Switch and then connecting your phone to it with multiple QR codes. It takes forever. It's super annoying. I just have a side Twitter account that I literally just have only for uploading screenshots, and then I just download those on my phone and post them wherever I want, right? So I think that is a bummer that that's going away. But for this, you can literally blame Elon Musk. This was, all the other consoles actually ended their Twitter integrations up to this point because Elon, when he bought the company, raised the cost of access to the API to multiple tens of thousands of dollars per month. And so, really you're looking at a very, very exorbitant price for these companies to use the suite for corporations, essentially, for Twitter. So unless that changes, I can't see them going back on this anytime soon. But hopefully this means that especially with a new Switch coming, that they'll kind of beef up the actual usability of their phone app, and then maybe have it be something sort of like the Xbox app where access it. Yeah, you've got cloud storage for your screenshots. I think that would definitely be the way to go with this. Totally leave behind any sort of API and have it all be on your own servers. That feels like the way to go for me. I'm sure that's, that doesn't come without its own costs, but hopefully this is trending towards that, and they don't just keep this horrible QR method for getting your screenshots off your Switch going forward.
So that's going to be happening on June 10th. So you've got less than a month to do that.
Last thing I'll say is if you are mutuals with anybody on Twitter, now is the time to go through your suggested friends list, because that is also going away on June 10th. I've actually gone through and sent friend requests to some of the people that I'm mutuals with that I was not currently friends with.
So I definitely think that you're totally right on that the reason for ending this is because Elon Musk raised the price and everything when Twitter got bought and turned to X, and I think that's definitely it. However, I have heard some people speculating this. I just thought it was interesting. Potentially, could Nintendo do something like Miiverse again and want to do like I don't want to say rival to Twitter X, but
say it. You should say it.
Twitter X with Nintendo, so that you would be on a Nintendo
social media network. That's the only place you'll find me.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, a Nintendo social media network. Will they go back to that? Are they getting ready for that? Is that why they're like, okay, no more Twitter X? Because why would they want to send people there when they're working on their own thing? Now, I've heard people speculating this, so I don't know. I don't think that's the reason to do it, but I guess that would be more in the cards after doing it, after cutting ties. So
totally, I think it's more in the cards. I kind of think they're done. I think it's like not necessarily. I mean, they had it and they got rid of it, So it's like, I would be very surprised if they did a Miiverse type thing again, but I'd be here for it. And while you're at it, bring back Miitomo, baby, because I miss that fucking app.
I'm almost mad at you for saying that because, I would want that so bad, which is why it's not going to happen.
Well, we're going to move on to our last news item, which is going to lead us into our main topic. And that is that just in advance of this investor meeting we talked about earlier, President of Nintendo, Furukawa, sent out a tweet that said that they are going to make an announcement about the successor to the Nintendo Switch, which is the part we're going to talk about in the main topic. And they also said that there will be a Nintendo Direct this June regarding the Nintendo Switch software lineup for the latter half of 2024, but no mention of this successor console. So This is confirmation that we are going to have a June Direct focused on current hardware. So here's our chance to say, this is probably the swan song. I don't know that this is the last Direct exclusive to the Switch. We can kind of talk about that in the main topic of timelines and stuff. But what do we think we might see, or what are we excited or hopeful for, or any other thoughts about it, knowing that we have a June Direct?
I think we're probably going to get 1 or 2 games for the rest of the fiscal year that aren't remakes or ports, right? I think that I don't see any reason for Nintendo, even though they've got this thing coming, to not still be re-releasing games, kind of coasting a little bit and holding some of these games for the next system. I think it would be a little foolish to like put out a bunch of bangers right at the very end. That said, I think it would be nice. I think that Donkey Kong 3D game that has been talked about for a very long time seems like a good fit for the Switch. I mean, the Mario Odyssey team has to have been working on something. And then maybe it's time to finally get those Zelda remasters, right? But what were you going to
I thought you were going to say Metroid Prime 4. It's time for Metroid Prime 4. That's what I want. Also, bookend the lifespan of the Switch.
I'll put, I will put my clown nose on just for a moment because, one of the last games that was on the 3DS as the Switch was coming out was Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, I could see it. I could see that coming out.
Give me that genealogy of the Holy War as a final title. I could really see it. I know I've been saying that for over a year. I literally saw that as a memory from the Direct last June of me being like, oh, it's going to be today. Sure the fuck wasn't.
Going off of that, there are 2 games every time I make a Nintendo Direct predictions video. I feel like the last 5 or 6 has been Genealogy of the Holy War and Kid Icarus Uprising. Every time I'm like, oh, this is probably going to happen. This is probably going to happen, and then it doesn't, and then but the rumor won't go away. It just moves to the next Direct. And also the I think you mentioned the Zelda HD ports from Wii U, moving those over to Switch. That's been, I think Jeff Grubb talked about that years ago, and it's still just been when's that happening? When's that happening? So yeah, those things are always maybe that's what maybe they just push things back to be like, what if we delay the Switch successor? Okay, well if we delay it, let's just these games that aren't necessarily our heavy hitters, let's just keep pushing those back so we have something in our back pocket. Maybe that's what the June Direct will be. All these games we've been kind of just waiting for a while.
Totally.
But yeah, as far as other stuff with the June Direct, I'm very happy we know there's one. Nintendo usually doesn't tell us this far in advance that there's going to be a Direct. However, in the past, historically, we have E3 Directs, and now we don't have E3 Directs. So it's nice to actually just get, June Direct, it's happening, which is cool. And if we did get those Zelda HD ports, and I don't know if something else happened with Zelda, I could see potentially this being a very Zelda-focused June Direct. I don't know that for sure what's going to happen in the Direct at all. I'm just kind of speculating on rumors here, but yeah, I could see if those 2 games did happen, and if some other game happened, I could see, I could see it being a pretty Zelda-focused Direct. But I don't know. The other thing is, of course, Prime 4. Prime 4, I thought I would have seen it by now, honestly. And maybe I'll hear about it before it happens. I don't know. But so far, I have heard nothing about when Prime 4 is coming out. Perhaps it's being a dual release for Switch and Switch successor, but I don't know. So we could see it in the June Direct. If we don't see it in the June Direct, then it is definitely dual release. Like that, I feel like June Direct's going to show it for holiday release. And if it's not the big holiday title, then like a September or fall Direct, probably when they reveal the Switch successor, because they said they're not revealing it in the June Direct. Right. I imagine we'll see it in the fall, coming out early 2025, and possibly that's where Prime 4 is hiding.
That's what I think. I think at this point, it feels like the reason we haven't seen it is because the Switch successor keeps getting pushed back. You know what I mean? And they're holding it. And it's just, if Princess Peach Showtime's performance on the Switch and the frame rate and all that kind of stuff is anything to go by, hold it. I don't need it. I don't need a version that is going to be throttled because of the Switch. Like give me all the quality and all the frame rate and all the good retro goodness you can. That's what I think anyway.
I have heard something, speaking of just games that don't run so well on the Switch, I have heard one thing. It was just kind of a vague thing, and it wasn't like totally positive, but it was from a reliable place. It was about Pokemon Z through A or ZA or ZA, whatever we're calling that one, Legends. That game will probably run better on the Switch successor. Obviously, I think every game, if it's backwards compatible, like everybody seems to say it is, which I imagine it probably will be, will probably run better. But that game might be being made to specifically run better on the Switch successor, which makes me think the Switch successor may come out around the same time as Pokemon ZA. I don't know if that will be the launch title or that's the thing that they're getting ready for. But I was told that something with Pokemon ZA and running better, like it won't chug along the way all the Pokemon games have. It's going to look better on the successor. So
that's confirmed 2025, right?
Yes, that game is 2025. So Switch successor is definitely next year as well. But I heard something about them happening, coinciding in some way.
That would make sense.
It was vague though. It was vague.
Yeah.
I think this is a good time for us to stop because we're going to talk all about that Switch successor for the main topic. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking all about what's known and unknown about the Switch successor and where it fits in. We are back. And this week we are talking about the successor to the Nintendo Switch and where it fits in to the industry and all that we know about it or think we know. So we discussed this in the news. There was this tweet by Nintendo President Furukawa that the successor to the Nintendo Switch will be announced within the fiscal year, which means March of 2025. Sort of simultaneously or running in tandem with this, there's been a lot of really great fan analysis of both the current state of Nintendo's software, all the development teams, what they are rumored to be working on, what they're known to be working on. Also, some Redditors have been doing some investigative, I don't even know what you call this, and like their personal investigation into like, what is it, like shipping ledgers and all kinds of different data sets, like stuff from the NVIDIA leak, stuff from other like sources to kind of analyze what the Super Switch or the successor to the Nintendo Switch, we're calling it the Super Switch here because that would be really great for us. And I heard you say that too, PapaGenos. So you like the Super Switch as the name?
That's what I want it to be called. Yeah, that is my, like if I had a choice, like if Nintendo called me up and was like, you get to name it, I'd be like Super Switch or Super Nintendo Switch, whatever everybody calls it.
Colloquially, Super Switch. Right.
Yeah, just Super NES, Super Famicom. Like it is a known Nintendo prefix or whatever you want to call it, and like just add that to it works so well. It sounds good with Switch. There's that 2S thing going on. Like it just do it. It sounds good, and I like it, and it would sell well. People would know what it is. It's a successor. It's the Super. It's not the Switch. It's the Super Switch. I just think it's perfect. Perfect. Do it.
Well, so all these Reddit users have been tracking all this information and putting it all in one place. So we are going to dig into some of that and, go back over some of the rumors we've heard and kind of the state of this Switch, Super Switch, and then kind of, with the rest of gaming with closures and crashes, kind of where with the timeline does this fit into, what's going on there? There are these people, and I said Reddit, but I think it's actually Famiboards, right?
That's correct.
Where a lot of this is happening. It was just like we have Reddit links here because people on Reddit have put the Famiboards stuff in context, where they've been following like customs documents and other things to kind of figure out some of this hardware, right? I don't know. First of all, maybe you can explain a little bit about that, or maybe we can just dig into what they think, because there's been some numbers right around like RAM and around like storage and stuff like that.
I haven't been down the rabbit hole of looking at shipment ledgers and shit from all of these things. Like that's a little bit above my pay grade, right? But I am familiar a little bit with some of the hardware, and if you know more about this, PapaGenos, please back me up. But I know one of the big ones is they're talking about 12 gigabytes of RAM for the Super Switch. It's going to take us way too long if we say successor to the Nintendo Switch every time. So I'll just say Super Switch from now on. But 12 gigs of RAM is pretty good for what we're working with on this kind of architecture. I think it's a little bit less than you see in the modern like handheld PCs like the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally or something like that. A lot of those are shipping with 16 gigs of memory. But at the same time, those are also running full like computer operating systems, right? So it kind of makes a little bit more sense for those to have that extra horsepower, especially with the rumored DLSS and stuff like that. I think 12 gigs should actually be a pretty nice amount for that. We've been hearing 256 gigs of storage, which wouldn't be surprising. I mean, we're in an era of 1.5 terabyte micro SD cards for not that expensive. So I don't think anybody's going to really shed a tear too much for not having like a terabyte of storage on this thing. And it's a lot bigger than anything they've done in the past. And then they've also been seeing shipments of magnets going to Nintendo factories as well, which kind of backs up some of the recent rumors that we've heard about magnetic connections for the Joy-Cons. But was there anything of interest that you'd heard, PapaGenos, that I might have missed?
I've heard so many things over the last like 2-ish years about the Super Switch. The magnet thing for the controllers was a more recent one. Really cool to hear that they're actually the shipments of magnets. It's probably what they're doing. I know that was something they wanted to do with the Switch initially, but they couldn't get it to work. So I'm wondering how they got it to work. Because me personally, I'm kind of thinking like I don't want to pull on it too hard or put too much pressure and have it break off. But it must somehow like lock in maybe with magnets, but not just be nothing but magnets. I don't know, or maybe they found some other way to do it.
Yeah, I think what I heard was like electromagnetic. So it'd be like something that you can like switch on.
So you press a button and it unmagnetizes it or something, or
essentially
blocks it.
Yeah.
That would be cool. As far as for the specs and everything, I had heard. I'm pretty sure the numbers that you threw out there were the same numbers that I had heard. I had kind of heard though that it was going to be probably more optimized, however, than most like the Steam Deck and things for specifically the games that it's going to play. So it might be slightly underpowered, but it might actually look better. But I haven't seen the thing, so that's a kind of an opinion piece. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But it's exciting to see that it is at least seemingly competitive with more modern gaming. Usually Nintendo, I feel, is more behind than what we're hearing for this thing. And I also feel like a lot of things have plateaued anyway. Like I play my PS5, but to be perfectly honest, I don't notice too much of a difference from my PS4 on most games, to be honest. And if it was between, hey, it's either your PS4 upgraded to PS5 looking, or it's that same game but you have it handheld, I'd probably choose handheld. Like I'd be like that's a bigger difference to me. That's more exciting than just, hey, it looks slightly better, but you barely even can tell. So if this thing can run most games, if it's not locked out of, all the new games are too much for it, it's not locked out of those games, and maybe they just don't look quite as good, but I have it handheld, I'd be pretty happy with this thing. So, but from everything I've heard, sounds good to me so far, but waiting to actually see it.
Yeah. And I think you've got a really good point there in that it is a like bespoke system that people can design for, where the PC market right now, and especially the handheld PC market, you've got, 30,000 different configurations of PC that somebody could be playing these games on. So it's not going to be optimized for every individual kind of system. But I mean, if they're making a Switch port, then you have a team that's hitting exactly what they need. And I mean, it'll just be nice to have a console, because even when the Switch came out, the hardware and it was already a little dated. It was like kind of repurposing a lot of this NVIDIA tech that they'd used in Shield and stuff like that. So I think it'll be really nice for something kind of pretty bleeding edge and fresh to hold us over however long this new life cycle is for this new system.
Also in these FAMA boards rumors is a couple of, obviously we have to take all of this with a grain of salt, but 8-inch LCD screen is what some of these are pointing to. Whereas I think right now what the Switch is like 7. So
it's slightly different between the light, the normal, and the OLED. Right. I think the light and the normal actually might have the same, but the OLED's a little bigger without the bezel. But I don't know the exact. I think it's about 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So, depending on your model, whatever, another inch increase. Do y'all think like that makes a big difference? Is anybody is bigger better, or like it for a screen? Do we care about that, or is it more like we would rather have OLED screens?
I'm torn. I think the OLED screen size is like ideal. My sister and I talk about this a lot. Pulling the Switch out already in public kind of feels like a production. If it's going to be something that I take with me places, if it's any bigger than it is now, then it almost feels pointless being a handheld. in that regard. That being said, the difference between the size of the OLED screen and the original Nintendo Switch screen is enough of a difference when it comes to playing in tablet mode. I've recently started playing like my fitness games in tablet mode because the timing seems a little bit better. I could never do it on the original Switch. I just could not see my screen well enough. And now I actually feel like I can do my fitness games on the go because of the size of the OLED screen. So like, that's kind of where I sit on that personally. Like, I mean, my preference.
I mean, we're already at a point. I think even like the regular Switch, the only really truly portable Switch feels like the Switch Lite. And even then, you can't really put that in your pocket, you know? So it's like either way, you're sticking this thing in a bag. So I think like making it a little bit bigger for me, I think is welcome, you know? I hear what you're saying, though. It always feels a little weird to me when I take my Steam Deck to the office toilet and take a poop. But I do that. But look, I
taking my duffel bag into the bathroom, everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, still, I mean, it's like all of that said, I'll take a bigger screen, and honestly, an 8-inch screen is going to make tabletop, like you said, so much more viable. If they weren't going to make the screen any bigger, I don't think that I would want them to do the detachable Joy-Cons anyway, because that is definitely the feature of the Switch that I use the least. It is like passing a Joy-Con to a friend and putting it on a table or whatever. But I think if you've got a nice big screen where you're not having to like hunch over with my old man eyes, you know, I think that I'm going to be using that feature quite a bit more.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that because I never use tabletop mode, to be honest. And I don't have an OLED. I just have original Switch, and my sister has a Lite. But I have two originals. Anyway, I could go into my whole collection here. But I don't have an OLED. So I haven't really used the tabletop mode. And one of the reasons is it's just a little too small. The screen is a little too small. So if it was 8 inches, that might actually make me use tabletop mode a little more. As far as the portability of the Switch or it being a handheld, I mean, it is a handheld console. But it's like my 3DS, I actually put in my pocket and I actually go places and play it. I really don't do that with the Switch. It goes in a bag, and usually what I use it for, and I do like it being portable, but it's more like I like it being portable so that if someone else is watching TV and I want to play video games, they can watch TV. I'm playing video games. If I want to play my game in bed, like I'm in the living room, I'm playing on TV, and it's like I'm going to bed. I'm going to play for a little bit longer, though. I bring it into bed with me. The fact that I have the option to bring it somewhere is great, but it's not something that I exclusively think of as, oh, when I go out, you know, in public somewhere, I'm going to play this. I'm going to bring this with me. I'm going on vacation. I'm going to bring this. It's really more just something that it's nice to be able to have its own screen when it needs to just be its own device. And that's what I find useful about its portable handheld system, is that more than what I guess you would traditionally think of as the Game Boy, is the whole like putting it in your pocket and going somewhere with it. I don't really do that too much with it. Bringing it over friends' houses is easier too, you know, stuff like that. But it's all the kind of other things about a portable system than the necessarily putting it in my pocket, really going out and sitting down on a bench somewhere and pulling it out and playing it occasionally. But it's not my main thing. So having it a little bigger, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it just laying down on the couch and kind of like lounging, you know, like that's, I mean, I play like that all the time, man. And you know, you don't want to devalue that.
Well, to wrap up maybe the hardware speculation / these new rumors, what about the dock? There's been some discussion about, you know, the dock managing some upscaling. There's also been in these sort of Famiboards discussions, people seeing multiple fans, which is speculating that maybe the dock could have a fan. That's not something that people know. That's just some speculation. Do we think, or do we want an upgraded dock that, you know, provides a better non-handheld experience? In what ways could it work, or what are the current rumors on that?
I don't have a huge horse in this race. I don't use the official dock myself. I haven't used the official dock for a few years, and a lot of that's due to the fact that I also have a Steam Deck. So it's like I have a situation now where I use, you know, one of those like portable docks that you can plug into a outlet. Right. So, you know, I have one of those under my TV that acts as both my Switch dock and my Steam Deck dock. And then whenever I go traveling, that's like the only power that I bring with me. It charges, you know, because it's USB-C, it charges every one of my devices, and it also acts as a dock. Right. So I don't have a huge horse in this race personally, but I'll tell you, if, you know, I've got a 4K TV, if this thing upscales to 4K and gives me increased performance with the official Nintendo dock, I would see an actual reason to use the official Nintendo dock, right? It does kind of feel like this whole generation, the dock has kind of been a bit inconsequential and frankly, an overpriced item for what it actually does, right? So if they put a little bit of oomph into it and something that can give it a little bit more power, then yeah, I mean, at least it would justify the $80 price or however much a dock is these days.
This isn't really the main reason for it. I know I was just like I literally grabbed my dock to look at it. To be able to have multiple USB input controllers, right? That's really the main reason to have a dock. And so you're really mostly only looking at things like Kart and Smash, I think, for that.
Unless there's anything else on the hardware rumors or known things, maybe we could talk a little bit about software and sort of launch lineup. There's been the overarching rumor that part of the alleged delay, which it's kind of funny to talk about because there was never an announcement until just this week. But there's been discussion about, it was originally supposed to come out in 2024, and then now it's going to be pushed back. And part of the reason for that might be a launch lineup. Alternatively, just regardless of that, what do we think Nintendo is holding? There's always some really great analysis on Reddit of what the rumors are for like all the different divisions and development teams. So, you can check that out if you're listening and want to get into the nitty gritty. But
yeah, we should link to that in the show notes for sure. But I don't think we could have this conversation without talking about release window. And
okay, yeah, that's a good point.
This thing is going to drop because like this is the closest that we know to when this thing will actually drop. And basically all we know, they didn't say anything about when this thing will be coming out. What they told us is that before the end of this fiscal year, they will announce. I don't even know if Furukawa said that they'll announce when it's coming out. They just said they'll announce the system itself, right? So we basically know timeline-wise what we know. The known knowns is that we got known knowns and known unknowns. You guys remember the Iraq War? Anyway, we have until the end of March of 2025 for them to announce this thing, right? Because right now we're at a position where like, I think normies, they don't know that like a Switch 2 or a Super Switch is coming, right? Like we're plugged in. We saw the tweet from Furukawa. Most people aren't, looking out for this is Furukawa on Twitter, right? Like they're just going about their lives and probably a lot happier than we are. But
to be them.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I do kind of think that we'll see the announcement before the end of this year, right? And I do think that even though they said that we'll get the announcement before the end of this fiscal year, I do think that there's a chance that we see this before fiscal year 2025 actually starts. What do you guys think? Do you guys have like a gut feeling based on this announcement on when we can expect this or maybe when we'll see some kind of like announcement video or event?
PapaGenos earlier in the discussion said what happens in the June Direct is going to give us a lot of info. I think if that June Direct, it'll give us times for some of these, games, right? If there's stuff dated, decent stuff dated through December or what have you, or like even farther than that, then I think we're looking at a later announcement like March and then a later release late 2025. But if it's then maybe you're right that the end of the year they announce it or very early or, a shorter window of between announcement and release. But sorry, you're going to say something, PapaGenos.
Oh yeah, I was basically going to say, exactly that. It's kind of down to this June Direct will show us, probably the end of the Switch. If it seems to not do that for whatever reason, then we'll probably see some more Switch stuff in like September. But if it does feel like, okay, there is a big holiday title this year. There is, we know about through the end of the year, then yeah, I feel like Switch successor console, Super Switch, probably September Direct or, equivalent if it's an October Direct, whatever it is. And then, yeah, I could honestly see it coming out before the end of the fiscal year. Even though they didn't say that, I could see that happening. Seems like a good way to end your fiscal year. I could see it literally happening like March, like, boom, here you go. Make all the investors happy. Have the meeting. There you go. But we'll have to just wait and see what happens with it. It feels big time. We talked about it before, but Prime 4 is like the canary in the coal mine. It's like if Prime 4 is Switch December holiday release. Okay, who knows when Switch Successor is coming out? If we don't see Prime 4, then it's like, all right, Switch Successor is probably going to happen shortly into 2025 because we got to get Prime 4 still. How long are they going to hold that game off? Because it's probably going to co-release with it. So that's what I'm waiting to hear about.
Yeah.
I got a weird question. Is Nintendo leaving money on the table by not taking advantage of this AAA games crash that's happening right now? You know, it's like, what does, like, if we're talking fiscal years, Sony doesn't have any first party games slated to come out this year, right? Microsoft, as we've talked about at the top of the show, is imploding and self-immolating right now. You know, I think it's like and then here we are also with Nintendo, who we've talked about is at their peak profitability that they've ever been at. They are the most profitable Japanese company of all time, right? It's like they right now are sitting so pretty on this huge heap of money, and yet this also is like a desert year for Nintendo releases. I mean, not that I'm not looking forward to, you know, Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door, and whatever, but I mean, you know, let's get real. This is a light year for Nintendo releases. What is the thinking with holding it so far and holding it for so long? Like, do you guys think that it is like manufacturing and maybe shipment problems, or do they have some other reason as to why they're not taking the opportunity to release it now when they're kind of the only player in the game?
I mean, like you said, they're making money, so I don't think they're leaving money on the table in a certain sense. But yeah, I do see your point, right? Like, but I think that's unfortunate timing, maybe. That if they weren't at this winding down, ramping up stage, they could be like, let's get some of those titles we've been holding off on and we're thinking about holding off on out this year because people will spend money this year. But yeah, that's an interesting point. The other maybe thing I was thinking about, now that we're kind of jumping to this sort of where does this fit in question, is like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series came out 4 years ago, right? Like that's not, or in 2020 and I guess the end of 2020. So not quite 4 years, but we are looking at least, I'm wondering if they're maybe trying to get more in line with those consoles, or to be at a different point in those consoles cycles. If they could time it out to be where that, you know, I don't know that they're trying to do that or not, but it does feel like it's going to be at a different point in those consoles life cycles too. So I don't know. That's a really good question though. I mean, they could make money if they had some big tentpole games, I think, this year.
Yeah, right. You know, because we've heard a lot about like a PS5 Pro, right? And we've heard about an Xbox mid-gen refresh and all this and an Xbox handheld or whatever and stuff like that, right? So maybe if they're hip to something that we're not about these consoles dropping this year, maybe they don't want to be another, you know, $400 SKU that you have to drop on the same, you know, however amount of time. But realistically, they're probably not even thinking about anybody else in the industry, and they're just doing their own thing, and everything's
they don't need to.
burning around them, and they're like kind of, you know, in their flame retardant vests or whatever, and it's just not a problem. But
that would kind of be my guess with it, is just Nintendo does its own thing, and while they probably, you know, in some level think this is a light year, it would be great if we could have gotten the Super Switch out this year, and it would be great, you know, to just, when everybody's not really that keen on Sony and Microsoft, and boom, a new Nintendo console comes out, strike while, you know, that they're the only thing that's out there. I do think Nintendo just always does its own thing, and hey, it's working out for them that way. So, you know, it'll probably just be what it is, and whatever it competes with, Nintendo doesn't compete with. That's always been their thing. We're on our own timeline. We're not competing with the other guys, even though they are, obviously.
Yeah, and it feels so much more like everything we talk about, like in this Furukawa era, is like that it does feel like they are trying to at least finally court third parties a little bit more. They are trying to bring the power up a little bit more, and it's still all speculative. This thing could come out and it could be marginally more powerful than a Switch because we don't know anything, right? But like, it's just, there's like a little bit of like cognitive dissonance there, because it's like everybody's always like, oh, but this is how Nintendo's always been. But my thought is always just like, this is a new Nintendo, and I'm just interested to see like what the changes actually are in this kind of post-Iwata era, right?
Especially in Japan, I will say that too. The Switch is extremely popular in Japan, and Sony has very much so fallen in Japan, which is interesting. I think that's probably part of the reason. A lot of reasons, but Square not doing so well is, Square is very associated with Sony, and Sony's just not as big as it is in Japan. Square's a very Japanese company, so if Sony's not big in Japan, Square's making games for Sony products, which might be part of why they're saying we're going to go onto other platforms and stuff. I think the main one might be Nintendo. We know Nintendo is huge in our, the country that likes our games the most.
Yeah.
So
that's fun. That's interesting. It did say in that Square announcement, third-party platforms like Xbox and Nintendo platforms.
Yeah, it was plural.
Yeah.
So, they may be gearing up for, hey, our games are going to run on Super Switch, and that's what we're making it for. And so
you heard it here first. Final Fantasy 17 is a Super Nintendo Switch exclusive.
17. Oh my god, I can't even count that high.
Not to jump around too much, but maybe we can go back to the idea of like, now that we've talked about timeline, if it's coming out sometime in 2025. Well, what do we think of all these rumored games that we've heard about make most sense for a launch game? We talked about Metroid Prime 4 maybe being the bridge, but what have we not heard about, or we've heard only through rumors that makes a lot of sense? 3D Mario, Mario Kart 9 or 10 or whatever you want to call it. Those strike me as the obvious choices. Any agreement or disagreement or dark horse guesses?
3D Mario, like it felt like I thought Odyssey was going to get more DLC than it got. I got the Luigi Balloon DLC, but I really thought they were going to do a couple Kingdoms or something. But it seems like that game was cut shorter, I think, than I expected it to be, if that makes sense. And it's been a little while, and yeah, I could definitely see a 3D Mario being like a launch title. We haven't had a 3D Mario as a launch title for a system in a while. Was Mario Galaxy a launch title for? No, that was Twilight Princess, right? Was launch title for a Wii. So has it been since N64 that we've had?
I think so.
Yeah. I could see them potentially having a 3D Mario. That's based on absolutely nothing, but just that it would make sense to do so.
Well, I'll give you this. If I think to mirror what you were saying about this June Direct, and if we see Metroid there, I think if we see the Donkey Kong game in this June Direct, then my money is on a 3D Mario being a launch title for the Super Switch, because I think that EPD whatever, I'm not sure which EPD makes Mario Odyssey, but it has been rumored for years that they are working on a 3D Donkey Kong game, right? Or a 2D Donkey Kong game, either some kind of Donkey Kong Country game, right? And I think that thing has been, in the way that Nintendo does, sitting on a fucking shelf waiting to go, right? And what better time than at the end of this year, where there has been just a glut of remakes and ports and all this kind of stuff. Donkey Kong has not been a huge seller in the modern era, but I mean, if that's like the big first party Nintendo game for like the Switch's swan song year, I don't know. I could see it actually selling pretty well, and that seems like a good strategic time to release a game like that. And so I think if we see that this year coming out, and that's not a Super Switch game, then I think, yes, we will see a Mario game releasing day and date with the new system.
Donkey Kong has been interesting with Switch too, because we haven't gotten a new Donkey Kong game. So many other Nintendo things have had a new game, though, who knows, a remake or whatever, totally possible of something, as we've had so many remakes as well. But yeah, we haven't had anything new Donkey Kong, and besides Mario versus Donkey Kong. Well, no, that was a remake too. Yeah, so I really haven't had anything. So I don't know. I guess I could see that potentially.
We got the park. We got the park coming. We got him in the movie.
The movie with Princess Peach Showtime, I feel like somewhat has to do with the Mario movie, and I feel like if anything, Donkey Kong gets pushed, like in the Universal Park. I do feel like that they're trying to give each of those characters that are kind of branching out Nintendo's name into further media their own games, their own things, for if they have fans who watch the movie and say, "Oh, I like Donkey Kong. Oh, I like Peach from the movie. Here's a game for them. Here's a game for them."
Totally.
I definitely see that as being a good strategy. Whether that's what they're doing or not, I don't know. But
they do bring up the Mario movie in like every financial Q&A. It's like everybody's always talking, because we didn't talk about this in the news, but the Mario Bros. Movie was the most profitable movie of 2023. Like, it was a hugely profitable movie. It's far and away Illumination's most profitable movie as well. So it was a huge deal for them, and yeah, I think they're definitely riding that hype.
So I'm going to throw out a game that I think would make a lot of sense as a launch title / launch window. Maybe not the first game or whatever, but within the first several months. And I think that's Animal Crossing. I think that, there's this probably internal worry, concern that if we're making something that's a direct follow-up, it's very similar. We've had problems in the past with the Wii U. With especially converting of casual gamers. So I wouldn't be surprised with how big, and I mean, we talked about Pikmin 4 becoming more of a household name. I think Animal Crossing became incredibly household common name for people who, maybe don't play a lot of video games. And I think launching or having within your launch window an Animal Crossing game would convert a lot of people to a new system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Animal Crossing was huge for the Switch. It came out, I mean, the timing was like perfect, and it had a lot of non-traditional gamers going out and buying a Switch, playing Animal Crossing during that time when we all were itching to live in a town and get to have normal life stuff going on, and everybody was stuck home, and it came out right around that time, and everybody was playing it. And yeah, I mean, it's gone from a decent Nintendo series to like, I think it's one of their it's at least top 5, if not like one of their top 3 now. It's crazy.
It's the number 2 seller on the Switch.
Yeah. But it's like, it's considered like their big 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just think that would be one that maybe you would delay a system for. You know what I mean? Like, if the rumor is true, to be like,
point. Yeah,
because
it was originally New Horizons was supposed to come out in October of 2019, right? Wasn't that their original release?
Oh yeah. They famously were like, we don't crunch. They
came out and said that.
Yeah. They were like, hey, we know that this is disappointing, but we need more time.
Turned out good. Honestly, I feel like the time when it came out was like,
absolutely.
Totally. And I mean, it's the same development team as Splatoon, right? And I mean, Splatoon at this point is, I think a sequel to Splatoon is still at least a couple years out, and they got to have like a ghost team doing the kind of end of life Splatoon updates at this point, right? Like, I think a lot of that also, all the events that are happening now seem to be pretty automated at this point. They can kind of be going through the end of life. So they're definitely going to be working on something. And I think that team kind of does tend to go back and forth between Animal Crossing and Splatoon. So I would not be surprised. And I mean, that's a great point, that you bring up on just like, what is going to be the thing that gets normies to be like, oh, like, how do they avoid Wii U, right? That's why like Switch Attach can't be called Switch Attach, right? If they call it Switch Attach, like, they're dead in the fucking water, right? Because it's like they need to give people a reason to not be like, oh, well, I already have a Switch, right? Mm-hmm. So if they've got an exclusive Animal Crossing on the new thing, that's going to bring a lot of normies over, and then they've got them in their camp for whatever they want to release that's going to be of interest to them, right? Because all the hardcores, we're going to buy the new Switch whenever it comes out, right? But it's like, you got to get that market that they captured, that 140 million unit, number. Like, that is huge, like, so it's like, how can they replicate that? Do they need to replicate that? I don't necessarily know, but if they set up a new system that's future-proofed with really good technology, and they have some kind of killer app early on that can get a lot of these people to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll have my Switch be e-waste, then I think, they're in good company going forward.
I mean, that could even be a big part of, the delay is just making sure they have a real strong launch, because they want to move everybody on the Switch, or as many people, normies, like you're saying, over to Super Switch. You gotta push everybody forward. I mean, think about this. If this was the launch lineup, because usually Nintendo launches with like one strong game, and then a couple like more lesser key games, and maybe some third-party stuff or whatever. But if their launch lineup was, you have Pokemon Company doing Pokemon ZA, Pokemon Legends ZA. Okay, let's say that comes out right at the same time. Huge amount of people. And let's say it plays on Switch. but it's better on Super Switch. Okay, so you have Pokemon people potentially buying it. Maybe there's a Switch
edition,
edition or whatever for Pokemon. It's like, oh, I gotta buy that. I mean, how many people buy Pokemon? So that would push people over. Animal Crossing for the more like non-traditional people or people who are maybe just gamers from the Switch era. They've just gone to the Switch era, and it's like, oh man, I love the Switch. I've learned I love Nintendo. I love this. Animal Crossing is on I got to get the new one for Animal Crossing. And then you have Prime Force, something that the hardcore fan base has been waiting the whole time for. Again, maybe on both, but looks better on that. If you made Animal Crossing exclusive, the other two on both, and you have all three of those right at launch, I feel like that covers the board and would get a lot of people moving forward. I could see those three. I don't know if that's going to be it or whatever. And again, Nintendo launch, I feel like is usually there's just one big game and everything else is staggered at least a few months, but maybe they're going to go hard. And if those three would be three real hard hitters to have at launch. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Let's not forget they could always do their backup plan for their launch, which is making COVID 2, right? Drop another global virus like they did to sell Animal Crossing. Bring everybody back, baby. Everybody wins. Anyway, sorry. I don't think that's true.
We did a really long news segment, so I think we should wrap up this main topic. I know we've kind of covered some of the big things about hardware and now software and sort of where this fits in, but I want to make sure anybody who, is there anything else we've missed or anybody wants to say before we close out?
You guys want to take bets on when they announce it?
I'm leaning towards late, so my bet is March. I really feel like they're going to milk
to
the
announce.
Switch. Yeah, I really feel like they said that. I think it could be that long.
Okay,
that would be wild.
I'm going early. I'm thinking September. I honestly think June Direct's going to be the swan song for the Switch for the most part, and then September is going to be a little bit more highlighting those games, maybe one or two other things. From there until March, whatever. But that's boom, it's coming out. It's going to come out. Let's say March. See it in September. It comes out March, and then probably announcing. I think the Switch is going to get discounted big time. Well, I mean, obviously, once they announce the next one, they'll almost have to discount it. And I can see them wanting to announce it, discount the Switch, and pull up holiday sales. Yeah. Because I also do feel like they want the Switch to be the most bought console ever, which I know it's. On the heels of PS2. So I think if they reduce the price, like I would go out and potentially buy like an OLED if it got price drop, just to be like, hey, I have an OLED now.
Yeah, do your part, soldier.
exactly.
I'm doing my part.
But that would move it, towards being the most bought console. And I could see a lot of people potentially doing that, double dipping on a Switch or finally getting one for maybe they have a really little kid who's wanted a Switch, but it's like, I don't want to get them. I'm just going to break it. But the light got $50 off. Buy it. Here you go. I can see stuff like that.
Dude, if they did like $150 lights, I mean, those would fucking fly off like hotcakes. I mean, the 3DS towards the end of its life was doing $99 systems. I could see them doing something real dirt cheap that will sell even into the Switch 2's life.
Just like the PS2,
yeah, for the budget stuff. But
I remember, what was it, the 2DS, the toast looking one came out. That they were see through. They were really cool. I don't remember what the price was, but it was cheap, and I went out and bought one. It was I feel like under 100, whatever it was. So. And I bought it mostly just because I was like, hey, see-through. I didn't need it, but I was like, it looks cool. I don't mind spending this kind of money on it. And if you do that with the Switch, it's like, you're going to get a lot of sales.
Yeah.
I want an OLED for every room of my house. That's what
There is that too, though. There's that lazy factor of like I have a dock in my gaming room and I have a dock in my living room, but would I want a Switch in both rooms? Maybe.
But yeah. Anyway.
Do you have a guess, David?
No. I mean, I think I'm going to go with the easy answer, which is in between y'all. I think, Papa, you're saying September, you're saying March. I think they're just going to repeat what they did the first time, and they're going to do a January reveal. I think they're going to, because that's what they did before, right? They had their big announcement. They had their big event where, they dropped the Joy-Cons off their wrists and swung them around and lounged and did the ice cube thing. I think we'll see something like that again come January, but I think they're going to be riding this free marketing that they're getting by everybody just frothing at the fucking mouth, trying to talk about this thing, right? I think we'll see a lot of controlled leaks leading up to it. I think, how did they refer to it? There's Project something. We've got a name for it. But, you know, the same way everybody was, Muju. It's like, you know, the same way we had the NX and we were talking about that. I think there's going to be still a lot more of that. It's going to be a crazy rest of the year while everybody's chomping at the bit to get all this stuff out. But I think January is when we get the official announcement.
Okay. I think Jeff Keighley is fighting for his life right now.
Oh my God.
I think November at the Game Awards. That's my guess.
Oh.
Hell yeah. I'll take that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'd like that.
Finish your drink if
I don't know if Nintendo would want to announce it somewhere where they don't have full control. You know what I mean? Like if the slightest thing happens and it's like we're gonna do it at the Game Awards and they put it out there and then
somebody storms the stage.
Bill Clinton, you know? And it's like, and it's the Bill Clinton system and it hurts the whole thing. Like I just see them being tentative about not having absolute control over the reveal of the system. It would be cool though. It would be huge.
No, November is good because it'll take all the attention away from the election. It's just Nintendo. Everybody writes in Nintendo on the ballot.
Here's a question. So you guys mentioned that is it Muji? MUJI? The code name for the system?
Something like that. Yeah.
I've heard that and I've heard ounce. And I've heard both of those being bounced back and forth. Not that it matters at all what the heck the code name for this system is. But those are like the two that I've heard bounce around the last like couple days. And I just feel like there's this weird like code name war going on. It doesn't matter if the outcome does not matter at all. Like who cares what it's called? You know,
I don't care what it's called as long as it's called the fucking Super Switch.
Yes. I care what it's called when it comes out. Whatever they call it behind closed doors, they're not going to beat Dolphin. Dolphin was the best one. So, you know.
Ultra 64. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we better call it. It's been a long episode. If you're out there listening and, you know, you've been following any of these leaks, rumors, or you got any thoughts about what the launch titles would be, then definitely send us a note or leave a comment and we'll try to shout you out next time. And with that, we'll close out our main topic and take a short break and talk about the games that we've been playing recently. I always talk about Splatoon 3 and I try not to, but I did want to mention extra work. I play tons of Salmon Run. Extra work happened. Shout out to AVK for tipping me off. I didn't even realize it was happening. We didn't get a chance to play together. We tried to, but it didn't happen. But I did have a little bit of I don't know what you call it. I played extra work a lot more than I usually do because it just hasn't timed out well for me. Very first attempt at it, nailed it, beat it, got 145 eggs. And then the rest of the event, I just failed. And it was really weird because it was like, I didn't even know what I was like, you learn the pattern. I just kind of stumbled on the pattern the first time. I went to the right ways and played the right things and had a okay team. I had the highest counts on everything on that one, on the one victory. And then I was like, I'm going to crush this extra work. And every other time I'm spamming this way because I know where to go. And we just failed. But it was still a lot of fun. I love me some extra work. I had my cousin Treeborg and composer for Monochrome Heights, bent neatly over, and we played a lot of Astro Duel 2 with my son. So we had some 4-player Astro Duel 2, which is kind of a thing now for us, which I really like. And then we also play tons of Smash Ultimate when I get together with that crew. So we stayed up late on Friday night and just hung out and played a lot of Smash, which was a lot of fun. So that's some of what I've been playing lately.
Very good. I'll go next. I have been playing a lot of Animal Well. I bought in on the hype and picked up Animal Well in the first week with that little launch discount that they had. And man, Animal Well is good, gang. It's good. It's not like a transcendent Metroidvania like everybody's referring to it as. It's not going to be like the thing that makes you a Metroidvania fan. I still have the same kind of frustrations with this game that I have with a lot of other Metroidvanias, right? But that said, it's a very good game and I'm really enjoying it. And I think if I was talking to Carrie, Real Tomato, recently about this game, and I think that this is a great game for people that have always been interested in these kinds of games, but have held off because of combat or complexity or stuff like this. This is a game that is all about exploration and puzzle solving and vibes, you know? And so I think this does it really, really well, and I'm really enjoying it. I have no idea how fucking far I am in this game. It takes me a lot longer to beat Metroidvanias than most people. So a lot of people are like, I beat this in 3 hours. And I'm like, I'm at like 7. I'm at like 7 hours right now, and I know I still have items that I haven't gotten yet. So some of that is probably just sitting on the TV, but very good game. Single developer as well. You love to see a game made by just one guy, and he did all the music, all the graphics, everything. It's fucking crazy. So great stuff. Real briefly, I did play the Tetris 99 Endless Ocean Maximus Cup this past week. I was playing a bunch of Tetris 99 leading up to it, and I didn't win a single match. And I'm pretty good at Tetris 99. And I was getting so frustrated. I was like, man, I lost the sauce. But then I played the Maximus Cup, and I started doing a lot better, and I won Tetris Maximus on it, and I got a couple first place wins. And it really just is that the people that play when it's not a Maximus Cup are the real hardcores. And all the normies come out and play the Maximus Cups, so it's a lot easier for me to beat them. But it was a really good time. I love that game. And shout out to Arika, who is the developer of Endless Ocean. It's nice to have an Endless Ocean Maximus Cup for a game that's also made by Arika. A little bit of autofellatio there. Then I also have been playing a demo for this game that's coming out next year called Angeline Era. And this game is so cool, gang. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about this when this game actually comes out, but it's by the developers of Anodyne. If you guys ever played Anodyne, it is such a unique experience. I've never played anything like it. It's kind of half of the game is kind of this overworld that's sort of puzzle solving and figuring out where you want to go next. You like search for things in the overworld, and then if you find something, it plays this little like mini game as you kind of go into these areas. And then when you're inside the areas after playing the little mini game, then it's like what they call a bump/adventure, which is basically there's no attack button. You attack people by like just bumping into them, right? So it's all about avoiding people and not having them hit you, and then bumping into like their butts or like them when they're not actively attacking. And then there's also like a shooting, there's a shoot button. You have a gun, but it's kind of like a lot of melee games where like Nier Automata and Bayonetta and stuff like that, where it's like kind of just extra damage in between melee hits or whatever. Very unique game, incredible music, incredible like kind of low poly style. I really, really enjoy this game. I can't wait for it to come out. So shout out to that one. And then lastly, I'll just say, because I haven't been on in 2 weeks, I did also play a little bit of Alien Isolation after the recent Alien Day. I was like kind of in the cultural zeitgeist. I never actually played that game all the way through. That is such a cool game. And the Switch port is incredible. Like playing that game on my Switch OLED in bed at night with all the lights turned off and these big ass headphones on is a really, really great experience. I actually own this game like on Steam and on platforms that like are, you know, I got it through bundles and stuff that are a lot more powerful than a Switch, but I actually really like playing the Switch version because it's got really good gyro, and I'm just amazed at how great this game looks on this platform, right? So that's what I've been playing. Summer, what about you?
Yeah. Would you believe me if I told you that I've been able to go a full week without playing Fortnite?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been busy mostly doing other things. That being said, I did play finally after years of people telling me to. I say years. Yeah, it's been years since this game came out. Sayonara Wild Hearts. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. My sister came over and was like, you haven't played this game yet, have you? And I was like, no. And she was like, she docks her Switch and she goes, you're going to play the whole thing right now.
That is a one sitting game.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I get why someone like her would want to continue to play it and perfect all of these levels. And I really dug it. It takes playing through the entire thing and getting to the very end to be like, that's what the whole thing was about. And then you see the credits and you're like, wait, that was Queen Latifah. That was Queen Latifah the whole time. Yeah, just gorgeous. Soundtrack was awesome. Gameplay did take me a little bit, reminding me that I can be an angry gamer sometimes. I am still also playing through. Hades. I don't want to say it's a problem. Like, I've managed to avoid still avoiding people talking about Hades too. I think the spear might be where it's at now for me. I go back and forth between the spear and I think the shield and the gauntlets. Those are all really good for me. But yeah, still finding things that I had not seen before. And just really quickly, I do want to talk about, I've been playing fitness boxing again. Yeah. And I was debating on like maybe making a thread for it in our Discord, just like for results and stuff. Like if anybody else wanted to do that kind of a thing, just like just like accountability buddy kind of stuff. But something I wanted to mention is like when I was first starting to play it again and I was playing it docked, and I know that I'm good at rhythm games. Okay. Like I'm just going to say it, but I have had some issues with the connectivity of my Joy-Cons. And I think it affects the timing sometimes. Like I had this issue a lot with Ring Fit. Now, that being said, I played it in tabletop mode because the TV wasn't available. I was like, yeah, okay, let's see how this works. And that's what I was getting at earlier about, I'm like, yeah, the screen is bigger. It works better this way. But I actually started playing through a song and my timing was perfect. And it had never been perfect before playing in boxing. And I was like, I don't know if there's something about, now I realize that maybe there's less delay with it not being the TV. Sure. Okay. But maybe there's something about the connectivity of the Joy-Cons being, I don't know. I haven't looked more into it. That's just been my experience right now.
It could be anything. It could be like where your TV is in relation, like where your dock is in relation to your TV. But honestly, what probably is just like a delay, and you can set delay stuff in the settings of that game. I know. Either way, you should definitely make a thread for that because I have not been exercising recently, and I think somebody like pushing me to the limit. I think
right if we just like do check-ins, like post our results or whatever.
And Hatsune Miku fitness boxing is coming out this summer, so we got confirmation.
What do you mean? Like it's being localized?
Yep, it's coming out in I think July.
Oh my gosh! Okay, because I knew people who did import it because games aren't region locked, but they're just like stumbling through the Japanese.
It's in English. Yeah. It's in a whole bunch of different languages. Yeah.
Excellent.
I've also had problems with boxing games, like rhythm boxing games on the Switch. To be pretty honest, I'm really good at Punch Out, like the original NES Punch Out, or at least I'm good at it. Maybe really good. I've seen some people play it, blindfolded and stuff. But but I'm pretty good at the original Punch Out. And I've tried to play it on NSO, and I can't. I can't do it. If I play it on an original NES or the NES Classic, I can fine. But on NSO, I can't do Punch Out. It doesn't feel the same. It's like slightly off. And that game is like precise. Like I gotta be precise with it. So
what about you, PapaGenos? What have you been playing recently?
Yeah, so the main game so the main Nintendo game, last like big Nintendo release that I played was Princess Peach Showtime. That was a little while ago, though, a couple weeks ago. I liked it for what it was. I thought it was fun, but it's not a super hardcore game. But I like those. Like I would equate it to like Kirby's Epic Yarn or the Yarn Yoshi games. It's one of those games, like not too difficult, but
same developer.
Fun. Yeah, exactly. And I like those though. They are fun. They're visually really cool. I did like that it mixed everything up all the time, which was really cool. All the different costumes, and I went into it thinking that the different costumes were just going to be like power-ups for those stages. But some of them are. Oh, this stage plays completely different than the other stage. Like it's a totally different game, which was really cool. So I like that about it. Besides that, though, the main game I've been playing a lot of. I'm a big Fallout fan. Fallout just got that TV show on Amazon Prime, and so there's been a ton of hype with that. And a lot of people have picked up Fallout 76 again, which I know had a terrible launch. But I've played Fallout 76 at launch. Completely agree. It was real bad. Still enjoyed what I could out of it just because I'm a big Fallout fan. And I keep going back to it. I've been going back to it over the years. It's been a little while since I've played it, but because the TV show was coming out and everything, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start playing it again. And then I heard it hit like 1 million concurrent players like a week ago or so. I was one of them. I was playing that day. So I didn't bomb Phil Spencer's camp. I didn't do that. I haven't found him in the game. But yeah, no, I've been playing it, and it is it's not perfect. I mean, there are some real Fallout purists, which I totally understand. Like I agree with it, but I also still like those games regardless. So I've had a good time with 76. It's definitely much better than it was at launch. And if you enjoyed Fallout 4. I know a lot of people weren't big on Fallout 4, but if you enjoyed it, 76 is as enjoyable as I feel like 4 is. At launch, it was bad, but they've added a bunch back, and I think they're expanding the map finally. They haven't expanded the map since the game came out, which I think was been out for like 4 or 5 years. They're expanding the map, I think, next month. So that's exciting. I'll probably keep playing it into that, and then whenever I dry up that content, I'll probably stop again. Some people keep going. There's people that run around at level like 1,000. I'm level 200 something, which has just been, I mean, it's still impressive, but it's I've logged into it for like a week. I'll play, go up another 30 levels, stop for a few months, go back in, play. That's been that. Besides those games, the only other games I've really played, been kind of busy. Haven't been putting out too many videos, honestly, because I've been kind of busy. But my friend has a 6-year-old who I sometimes hang out with, and he likes to play. And I mean, no offense for this. He likes to play Minecraft and Fortnite, which is, because it's very much the demographic of a 6-year-old. So I play Fortnite and Minecraft with him here and there. And I haven't played Fortnite since 2017, something like that. I played it when it was first kind of a thing. PUBG and Fortnite battle royale games were coming out. I tried both of them. I was like, it's okay. But then he finally, we downloaded it onto his Switch, and so he's been playing that, and we've been playing Minecraft for the last couple of years together. But so that's pretty much those 4 games. Prince of Peace Showtime. So last big Nintendo title I played. Fallout 76 has been the game I've really been playing. It's one of those games also, it kind of takes up all your time, so it's hard to play anything else while I'm playing it. And then a more casual Fortnite, Minecraft, playing with my friend's son.
Bethesda's making a play for that best ongoing game award. If
they might get it. It's really bizarre, but they might get it. Which would be, I love those stories, though. I do, like No Man's Sky had that terrible launch, and now it's pretty good. So I'd love to see Fallout 7. 76 still has some issues, but much more playable than it was.
Very cool.
Well, that's going to do it then for this episode on the Super Switch and where it fits in the current gaming landscape. Thank you so much, PapaGenos, for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you for having me on. And definitely, let's try not to go, what do we say, 3 years? Let's try not to go 3 years.
That's a promise.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. Thanks to all our patrons on Patreon. If you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online most places as PDYX.
You can find me at WeBewitched.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, PapaGenos? Where can people find you online?
My main place is on YouTube, PapaGenos on YouTube. But I also I have a Discord channel. I have Twitter. All those things are linked in the YouTube channel. It's basically the main hub. On Twitter, I'm Genos Papa. Some places I'm Genos Papa because somebody took PapaGenos on me. But most places I'm PapaGenos. So if you try either of those places, you'll probably find me.
Very good, very good. Shoot PapaGenos a follow. Get those spicy Zelda leaks over there, or hints. Or we'll talk about it after.
I just posted what I wanted. I don't know.
We're talking about it later. Anyway, if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We got a website, switchheadz.com. And then, like Patrick said, we have our Patreon. We also have a Facebook group and a Discord of our own. We'll have all 3 of those linked in the description of this episode, whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the other platforms. Drop us a like, subscribe on any of those, a follow, and shoot us a review on those platforms as well. That's going to do it for this episode, this jam-packed fucking episode. There's a lot to talk about this week. We're going to be back next week with another banger, so make sure you don't touch that dial. We got a very special guest that's going to be here for next week. Can't wait for that one. But in the meantime, gang, you guys know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Let's manifest a September announcement for the Super Switch. I think we can make it happen. And you heard it here first from renowned leaker PapaGenos. No, I'm just kidding. I know. I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking with you. Anyway, that's going to do it. We love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.